Hey, everybody. I just wanted to come on and talk a little bit about masks and why we wear the masks, how we started wearing masks, and even to share with you how the people pleasing and perfection mask was born for me. So I share my story often and have probably shared parts of it in other episodes of Masks Off. But I think for those of you who may not have heard the whole story or even have heard any parts of it, I thought I would share with you a little bit about my story again and how I even got to this point of doing Masks Off podcasts. So for me, I can remember a time when I felt like it was okay to just be myself. I was just a kid playing. I loved to play in the snow. I loved to play in the mud. I was just being a kid and being my inherent self and just was completely okay in just being. And I can remember having this experience at my playground at school, the playground at school. And it was a swing set that was about 15 feet tall. And I decided one day that I was going to climb up one of the rails that held up the swing set and shimmy my way to the top and then do like a somersault over the top bar. So I remember, getting started by pulling myself up one hand after another, hoisting myself all the way up. I was halfway up. My arms were so tired. They were so heavy. And I thought to myself, there is no freaking way in hell that I'm going to make it to the top. And then there was just like this little voice, this quiet voice inside me that kept saying, come on, you can do it. You can do it. And I continued to hoist myself until I finally got to the top. Okay, so now I put one leg over the front, one leg over the back so that I was straddling the top of the bar. And remember, I was 15 feet up in the air. I looked down at the ground and just this wave of fear, like, no way am I doing this, came over me. And if I didn't do this properly, it wasn't going to end well for me. But then I just, again, that quiet voice inside me said, okay, just do it. So I just flipped over and I did a somersault on top of this bar. And I can just remember that feeling like it was yesterday, that I felt so incredibly powerful. I felt unstoppable. I felt like I could just do anything in the whole entire world. I felt expansive, alive, big, big. And then now we fast forward to a year later when I turned 11 and puberty hit. And let me tell you that it felt like puberty hit like overnight. One day I was this skinny, straight board, straight as a rail. Next day, it seemed to me like I just shot up several inches. I had put on a lot of weight. My boobs got big, my butt, my hips. I have stretch marks to confirm this story. And then I had all this acne. And all of a sudden, I just felt like so different, so separate. I didn't feel like I belonged because my peers had, most of them were not hitting puberty yet. And then on top of it, I can remember being ostracized by the boys. They would call me names and make fun of me. And I did not like feeling different. And then I started to feel inherently bad. Like there was something really, really bad about me. And so, because we are wired for belonging, we're wired for connection. Like that is our old lizard brain that wants us to stay connected. We need to stay in a tribe. And now I'm feeling like I'm not a part of the tribe anymore because I look so different and I'm feeling ostracized. Well, I was being ostracized. So I'm feeling like I'm on the outside. So how am I going to protect myself now? Because it's no longer okay to just be me. And that feeling of unstoppable, just like that flame just died out, it fizzled out, and I no longer felt powerful and unstoppable. And if anything, I felt shame, I felt small, I felt unworthy. So, in order to protect myself, I learned subconsciously, of course, how to perfect, perform, and please. Because when I was doing those things, and these were my masks, my main masks that I wore, when I was perfecting, performing, and pleasing, I was getting external validation. Like, oh, Kim's got straight A's, and oh, isn't she just, she's so nice to be around. She's so pleasing. She's so accommodating. She does whatever you ask her to do. She agrees with you. She's good in sports and yada, yada, yada. So I learned that if I played out these patterns, that I was going to feel like I fit in. I would feel like I belonged. But here's the problem. I started to, in high school as a teenager, I started to really struggle with anxiety, with depression. I had an eating disorder. And why did all of these things? Well, they may have started for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons that these things, these issues started to creep up was because I was cut off from my true self. I abandoned my true self. I told my true self that it's not okay for you to show up, because if you allow yourself to be who you truly are, if you were to speak up and speak out and say what you really think, what you really feel, and what you really believe, that there is a good chance that you will be rejected again. And now remember, I had that experience when I went through puberty of being rejected. I felt rejected from the tribe. So, and that was an awful feeling. It was such a horrible time for me and an awful feeling. And I know many of you, many of you have these middle school stories. Like, middle school is one of the most difficult times for us because these things happen. So I didn't want to feel like that again. And it was more important for me to feel like I fit in. So I was pleasing, I was perfecting, I was performing, and I was not allowing my true self to be seen. And the irony is that what I long for the most, and what we often, all of us long for, is to be truly seen, to be heard, to be understood, to be able to connect on the deepest level. But the problem is that when we wear these masks, and again, they are for protection. At one point in time, we use them for protection, but they don't really serve us well. And it keeps us from being able to be truly seen, right? So think about it. If you're wearing a mask and you're presenting yourself as someone who you're not showing who you truly are, how are you going to be seen? So I had the anxiety, the depression, the eating disorder, and later in my early 30s, I also developed or was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And I knew that if I wanted to be able to show up for my 2 and 5-year-old, I was going to have to start doing things differently. I couldn't continue to be a people pleaser, and I couldn't continue to put other people's needs ahead of my own, because now I had a chronic disease and I had to take care of myself. I had to find ways to show up for myself in order to show up for my kids. And it was really important for me to be able to be there for my children. So I had to start doing things differently. That's one thing. But what I really, really want to hone in on is how over the years, again, coming back to this connection piece, how has been, and sometimes still can be, incredibly difficult to speak up and to say what I really think or what I'm really feeling with the people in my life. I often had experiences, and many of you may have experienced this as well, where you just tried to speak up and tell another person that was a loved one, someone that's close to you in your life, like how you're feeling about your relationship, or what you're seeing as maybe being an issue or a problem in your relationship, only to be met with resistance, right? So if you were to tell your partner, for example, that you are unhappy with the way that you are being talked to or being treated, you may have been met with complete gaslighting, complete resistance, and anger and disapproval from your spouse, or maybe it's even with your parent, or it could be your children if they're teenagers or young adults. And so because of that resistance that you're met with and that disapproval, if you struggle with the people pleasing mask, there's a chance that you learned, okay, I'm not going to speak up anymore, because it's, once again, going back to, it's more important to stay connected to that person, even if it's just fake and false, than it is to speak up and be your true self and possibly risk being rejected or having that person abandon you. This was my experience as a child, that when I would speak up, especially more so as like a teenager, it was like in my teenage years, I can remember that if I spoke up, and I just came from my experience, I wasn't being mean or disrespectful to my mom. I was just speaking up and saying, like, no, that doesn't feel good, or that doesn't feel right. That's not how I think. No, I don't want to go to Aunt Susie's funeral. I'm 15 years old. Why do I want to go to the funeral? And then it's like, well, you have to go to Aunt Susie's funeral. It's disrespectful if you don't. Or make sure you call Aunt Shirley and tell her thank you for the Christmas gift or whatever. And if I didn't do that, then I was guilted or shamed and told that I was wrong or bad for not. And then for me to speak up and say, Mom, I don't want to do that, I'm a teenager, or whatever, or however, I would be met with her anger and possibly her withdrawing, or she did. That's what I learned. She would, for that moment, she would withdraw her love. And then as a child, you don't know if mom's going to stay there and come back around or not. I mean, she would come back around, but I didn't know that. And we, again, our brains are always looking toward staying connected rather than being abandoned or rejected. So I just learned, okay, I'm going to acquiesce, and I'm going to, if I want to stay safe, I'm going to do what she asks me to do. If she speaks up and she's, saying something out of pocket, I'm not going to call her out on that, because then it might be, well, how dare you say that? How dare you talk to me like that? I'm your mother. Who are you to talk to me like that? Those kinds of, that kind of talk can really did shut me down, and it can shut you down if you've experienced that as well. But here's the problem. So, okay, then moving on into young adulthood and adulthood, I still felt like that little girl. I still felt like that adolescent with her and with other people. And I learned how to hustle. The way to hustle for love and a sense of belonging is to not speak up. Don't say anything that's going to rock the boat with the other person. But the problem is, here is the problem, that I'm not showing up and being real when I'm in those situations. And I'm not connecting like at a heart-to-heart level. It's like I'm showing up as a false self. Tara Brach always calls it our false self, our false spacesuit, I think she calls it. And yet at the suffering comes in, and the prison comes in, because I'm longing for, or we are all longing for, that deep, deep connection. So what do we do? What is the antidote? What is the solution to this? And I started on a journey when I was in my early 30s. So for the last 20 so years, I have been working on healing. I do the inner work. I heal from those wounds. I heal and unmask from the people pleaser and the perfection and any other masks that I wear, so that I can come more from presence, from wholeness. Because if I know on the inside that I am worthy and that I am good enough, and that it's my right, like my birth given right, to be able to use my voice to speak up and to speak out and to create my own inner safety, that if another person does get upset with me, and will, it's inevitable, will get upset with me, maybe perhaps raise his or her voice, show anger, show disapproval, that I create enough inner safety within myself that I can set boundaries, I can take care of myself, I'm okay. I know how to show up for myself and handle myself in any situation, and to remind myself that I am a sovereign human being. And as long as I'm doing it with integrity, that I can speak up and say, and need to speak up and say whatever is on my heart and mind. Again, as long as I'm coming from a place of integrity. And I do check in with myself over and over and over again before I say something. Like, is this coming from a clean place? And if I don't come from a clean place and I come from that old space, that I own it. Then I own my shit. Like, then I'm like, okay, that didn't go well. So I pause and I go in and I'm like, all right, what was all that about? And then I can come back around to that person and I can do a repair, because it's not about being perfect. It's about having progress, and it's about learning and growing. So I just wanted to share my little bit of my story and why we wear masks, why the masks are created or born, that they are there for protection, but it ends up being like a mask is just another way of thinking about a pattern. So if we continue to keep these masks on, we're living out a pattern, and we're not living a real, true life. We're not being our most sovereign self, and coming from a place of wholeness. We're coming from a place of having still holes in us, HOLES, like Swiss cheese, because there's, the mother wound, there's this wound, there's that wound, there's this, the puberty wound, or whatever your story is, whatever your wounds are, your holes, your Swiss cheese, that if you're living from that place, you're going to be constantly looking on the outside for people, places, and things to make you feel a certain way. And it will never, ever work. It never does work. Maybe temporarily, but it's not long lasting. And doing the inner work is what is long lasting. And that's why I created a program, a pathway that I take myself through and I can take others through, so that there's a way, a process to do this inner work and heal, to be able to unmask and unhook from those patterns, so that you can show up with this inner strength, this feeling of being unshakable, no matter what happens or who is upset with you, that you know that you can speak up and speak out. It is your right to. And so then you start to share more from an open-hearted space with the people in your life. And you can go deeper with those people. So I really, just to kind of recap that, and here's the thing, if this resonates with you, if you're hearing what I'm saying and you're really struggling and you don't know what your next step is, or you don't know how to move forward, you just keep spinning on this hamster wheel and hoping, like I used to say all the time, I'm wishing and wanting all the time for things to change on the outside, and they never did until I started to change on the inside. And if you have like no idea, or even if you have an idea and you have been doing work on yourself, and you know that the way to do this is to go inward, but you're still kind of spinning your wheels and you're not really operating on all four cylinders, you're looking for some support, this is what I do. This is what I help with. So I encourage you to just reach out. You can go to my website. Everything is there. There's my Calendly link. You can take a people pleaser perfection quiz if that interests you. Either way, whether you reach out to me or don't, that's fine. I just wanted to share with you, and I'm going to keep on sharing because I am really passionate about this work. I have seen such transformation in my own life, mostly on the inside, mostly how I feel about me on the inside. And I will say that because I'm changing and transforming on the inside, that I am seeing that like ripple effect where other things in my life on the outside are changing as well. First of all, so much less drama, so much more peace in my outer world. And then things just start like lining up, and I just am able to flow more than I ever used to. I used to be in resistance all the time. And now I'm in a place because I'm more at peace. I have this inner peace, this inner harmony. I'm able to flow more. Now, does this mean that it's perfect every day, 24/7? Hell no. By no means is my life perfect. But the thing is that when things show up, like my patterns show up again, because I'm triggered by something on the outside, I have a process. I know what to do next. I know how to go inward and to be with that, so that I can then come back to this place of inner peace, harmony, and sovereignty. Okay, everybody, I hope that this was helpful for you. And, I would love to hear what your thoughts are. So you can just let me know in the comments section if there's something more you want to hear about or wanted me to go a little bit deeper, or you just want to share what's going on for you. I want to create a community here, and I'm here to listen. I'm here to support. I'm here to guide, and I'm here to inspire and teach. So I hope that you have a great day.